Hi folks, so we're back out here with this Marantz 2265B again. But before we go any further, I'd like to discuss the repair we've already done on the output module and discuss the repair process in general and this one in particular. We make our diagnosis, we replace any parts we see or test to be defective, and then we do power on testing, and sometimes we get everything, but more often than not we don't. But at least we get it to the point where we can energize it without any more smoke being emitted, and therefore we can then test and pinpoint any other issues we might have. A case in point was the emitter resistor that I had missed. Now, emitter resistors opening up when output transistors short is not uncommon at all. However, I haven't seen it happen to me lately. I neglected to test it. I got bitten on the hindquarters as a result. Such is life. And if you recall, we found the main power fuse wrapped in foil. Now, did this allow more damage to be caused? Because it never did blow. I guess we'll really never know the answer to that, but it brings up a really good point, and that is, if you buy a piece of used or vintage audio equipment, it's a good idea to check the fuses. Aside from the fact that you may find fuses wrapped in aluminum foil or non-fuse-like objects used as fuses, you may also much more commonly find the wrong value of fuse installed. 2 amp fuse blows, somebody puts a 10 amp fuse in. These are things you want to check out, because having the wrong fuse in there can cause a lot more damage. Sometimes a fuse will just blow from fatigue, but a large fuse won't. And if you have a large fuse in, you develop a minor problem, it could cause it to turn into a major problem. So anyway, after I replaced that emitter resistor, everything on the board worked. Then, and only then, after the repair was completed, I took it back apart and I replaced all the electrolytic capacitors, and I replaced any of the substandard work, let's be honest here, where resistors were soldered onto the leads of old resistors. There was a transistor, same thing. The transistor was clipped out and the leads were soldered to the old leads, simply because they didn't want to take it apart. I don't like to work like that. It worked, but it's not the kind of work I like to see. It's probably not the kind of work you'd like to see on your piece of equipment. So anyway, once all the work was completed, I was able to bias it, and here's a picture showing both meters. The bias is supposed to be set to 20 millivolts, pardon me, but I usually set it a little bit low and watch it. This climbed up to about 19 and change and stopped, so that's good. And the offset I was able to dial into the microvolt range, which is more than good enough. A few millivolts is not going to hurt anybody. You'll know if you have offset, if you go to plug your speakers in, you hear any crackling, that's from DC on your outputs. So having no offset means you have no DC on your outputs, that everything is balanced between positive and negative. So now that we've had that discussion, let's take a look and see what else is going on with this. And by the way, this has taken quite a beating in its life. Let me just lower the camera a little to make sure you can see this. But the AM antenna is gone. This ground is bent, and I'll post a picture of this because I really don't think you can see that. And it's just overall really dirty inside. And I also noticed a problem with the function switch. So we'll talk about these things, and we'll just give it a run through and see what else is wrong. But so far, the amplifier itself is good. So now we're going to put signal through the rest of the unit and see what we get. Okay, so there's two minor problems I found that I'm going to need to address. One is our volume control is really loose. The front panel is going to have to be pulled so we can get to this board when we go to rebuild. But at very least, I need to clean everything, and that also necessitates pulling the front panel. And the other problem I found is when I turn the selector down here. Let me get some light in here so we can see what's going on. I found a problem on the selector switch. Now, you could hear it click and see everything moving, but the problem I was having was nothing was changing. Marantz has little indicator lights in the panel and it never changed. And if you look here, and I'm going to move the camera so you can get a little better angle. Right back here at the back of the selector switch, this pin is loose. Now I think there's supposed to be a clip somewhere holding this in, but it was backed out like this. And when you can see, I don't know if you can see down in here or not. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take this off the tripod and sit it right on the bench, and I think you'll be able to get a better look at this. So here's our selector switch. And as I'm turning it, you can see that the shaft inside is not moving. But when I push this in, now you can see that the entire assembly is moving. So I need to find out what the problem with that is. There should be a clip or something that holds that in, or something is broken, and I fear it's going to necessitate pulling the entire assembly. But that's okay, because if we're going to rebuild this board, we're going to have to do that anyway. All right, so let's turn this thing on and see if we can get some signal through here. Well, I've tried the output directly, but let's try going through the entire unit. Okay, so I'm feeding a signal into the aux input, and there's definitely something going on with this function selector switch. But I cleaned the volume pot and the balance pot, so we are able to, even though you see some noise initially, it's also loose, so we're going to have to take this apart. We knew that going in. But yeah, we have signal coming through here. Part of that is our function selector. Yeah, this thing has got a lot of cleaning needs to be done, and possibly we have some bad solder joints or dodgy components in here. Okay, I just got to go in protection by tapping the board down here. Yeah, our selector switches also got to be cleaned, probably disassembled. Good time to clean it. Yeah, all right. All right, we get plenty output out of it. It's just a little dodgy. We're going to have to clean up a lot of stuff here. But basically, we got signal all the way through in the aux function. We need to check phono and AM, FM. I don't expect to get much out of AM with no antenna. FM, I'm going to feed a signal in from the generator, and maybe we'll do that with AM as well. Let's take a look at the phono. That's easy enough to do right now. Okay, so let's put in a weak signal, about 10 millivolts. All right, let's see what we get out of the phono. There we go. That looks pretty good. Again, if I jiggle the selector, you can see what happens here. We definitely have a problem. Okay. I believe there's some broken solder joints on it too. I'm just going to aim the camera down so you can see this. But the entire assembly moves. And I think we might have a problem here. This is definitely going to have to be disassembled. Okay, let's check out the tuner section. Okay, I'm going to turn on my signal generator. Okay. Okay, so I'm feeding in a signal at 100 megahertz on FM. Let's see if we can pick that up. Okay. We've got some real issues here. This is what I'm seeing on FM. It looks like the left channel might be passable. Even that's I'm feeding in 50 microvolts, which is a pretty strong signal. I'm going to goose it up a little more. Okay, that's a really strong signal. And we got a lot of problems here. I'm going to put it in mono. All right, we're going to have to go through. There we go. Now that's in mono, but it doesn't stay. Yeah, we've definitely got some problems with the FM. I'm going to tap the board. Okay, so we're going to have to go through the tuner section. Gee, I don't know if we'll get anything out of AM. How can I even... Okay, well, let's go to AM. Okay, that's AM. We're about, let's see, 900 kilohertz. Let's see if we can get something around there. FM off, AM 50% frequency. Okay, I'm not sure if AM's working at all. I don't see anything, not even noise. All right, so we're gonna have to look at that as well. So, tuners seem to be where the rest of the problems lie. All right, I'm gonna stop this here. We'll come back to it in a few minutes. Okay, so we've determined we have about 3 problems that need to be addressed. First one is there's a power issue here. Now, when I turn this on, you can see the lights come on behind the meter, and if I jiggle the power cord just a little, I want to make sure you can see everything I'm doing. Comes back on. So we have a problem right about here, and I need to determine what that is before going any further. The second problem is that selector switch. We got to address that. We're going to have to pull a front panel to do it. So I'll go show you how we go about that. And the third problem is the FM. I'm hoping that perhaps fixing selector switch will straighten out the FM. But before we go any further, I have to give a shout of thanks and a tip of the hat to subscriber Mark Zacharias. Mark saw in a video what I didn't see right in front of my face, and that was the fact that the emitter resistors are actually 0.47 ohm, not 0.33 ohm. Now, my mistake is I looked at one of them, this one here, which is clearly marked 0.33 ohms. However, that was put in by that I keep saying TV shop repair. I don't know for a fact that's what it is, but it's certainly what it looks like. However, the emitter resistors used in this are clearly marked at 0.47 ohm, and indeed the other three were. Why I chose to look at the one that wasn't, I will never know. But thank you, Mark. I really appreciate you pointing that out. And I have since gone back in, and if you look at this picture here, you'll see I have corrected that. Now, it's really not that much of a difference, and you wouldn't think it would make any difference at all unless you watch that video I did on the Sansui. The very last video, I think it was part 7, outlined the distortion problem I was having from just a little bit of imbalance between the stages. And this would cause exactly that same problem. Totally inaudible, but really hard to chase down if you're working on them. So Mark, thanks again. I really appreciate you pointing that out. And if anyone else sees me do anything wrong, stupid, or anything else, please point it out. I read the comments. I try to answer as many as I can. It's getting harder and harder as I get more subscribers, but that's my commitment. If I'm going to have a channel, I'm going to read all of the comments, and I'm going to answer as many as I can or address them in a video. So anyhow, let's start taking a look at that power cord, because that's the thing I find most concerning at the moment. Okay, so working on this power cord is going to require us to remove this strain relief bushing here. Now, I used to use a pair of needle-nose channel locks, and I would get them out, but I'd usually scar them up pretty badly. And then I read about these guys. These are strain relief pliers. And I think I paid $25 or $30 for them. But this is just one of those specialized tools that does it better than anything else out there. They grip the strain relief bushing and allow you to rock it out and reuse it. Doesn't scar them up. So having said that, watch me mangle this thing up. Nope, works as advertised. Pops them right out and really just makes a dream job out of what used to be a nightmare. So now we can pull the strain relief bushing out, and I have a feeling we're just going to have to cut off about 3 or 4 inches of this cord. I'm not sure where the problem is, but we know if we wiggle it right around there, we get the lights coming and going. So let's see. While I've got that, before I do this, let's take a look and see if I'm going to cause any problems here. No. Okay. I was concerned because we do have this broken outlet here, but I'm pretty sure our problem is right about down in here. So let's see. It doesn't come on. That may have just broken the last connection in there. Okay. Oh, there we go. If I twist it that way, we get light. Twist it this way, we don't. Okay, so I'm going to cut this off. We're going to re-terminate it inside, and then we're going to see if it clears the problem. If not, I may have to replace the cord, but I want to keep the stock Marantz power cord if at all possible. If it's 3 inches shorter, so be it. Okay, so I got the power cord cut out of here, and you can see it just goes right across that broken outlet. So I'm going to cut it and remove some of the old wiring, and I've cut and stripped the power cord, and we'll feed it back through, solder it down, and reinstall that bushing. You saw how easy these pliers made it, though. Well worth the money. All right, so I cut off about maybe 2-3 inches of power cord here, and now when we energize it, you can see the lights came on behind the meter housing, and we can jiggle this, no more problems. So that's taken care of. The next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to remove the front panel in order to access the pots we need to clean, the board I need to work on, and most importantly, the function selector switch. So I'm going to walk you through the process of taking the front panel off. Pretty easy, couple of gotchas, we'll talk about it. Okay, so we're getting ready to pull a front panel. I have a bag marked knobs. I have another one marked inside front. So this is where everything's going to go. Marantz's are a lot easier than Sansui's. There's no set screws. The knobs just pull off. You can turn them one way or another and make it easier. I just pull them off. This one was wrong anyway. These are two section. They lock together. But again, they're really easy to pull off. And that takes care of the knobs. That goes in the master Marantz bag. And we have the inside front. We are going to pull these four. I have a 5/16 nut driver, but what I didn't know at first when I first tried to get the front off is this is a nut that has to be unscrewed. Can be a little tough, excuse me, got to get in front of the camera and drop my tools. Okay. Let's see, that light is probably exactly in the way of what you need to see. But this is what needs to come off. Let's see if we can just turn it with a screwdriver. Yeah, usually you just turn this with a screwdriver like that and unscrew it. Okay, and that comes out. That's just a long nut that goes around the mid control. All right, so that goes inside the inside front bag. And we take our nut driver and we take off the four nuts that are in each corner. And now the face should just rock right off, and it does. And one thing you need to be careful of is when you have the face off, you don't want to break this pointer. I did that once. I ended up ordering one from a guy that makes them over in Europe. Cost me about $50 all told. I've been very careful ever since then. Sometimes I put a piece of low stick tape to hold it in there to kind of protect it. But anyhow, that's all you have to do to get the front off. So now we're going to start pulling out this shaft here, and then we're going to see what it's going to take to get this board out. The shaft is very simple. It's quite similar to the Sansui's that we've worked on. When I say we, I mean me. You've watched. But anyhow, this guy just comes out like this. And now we should be able to pull the shaft from the coupler. Doesn't matter if the shaft comes with a coupler or not. We'll just put that in our bag so we don't lose it. It goes inside the master Marantz bag. And now we can concentrate on this board down at the bottom. I'm going to pause this, move this camera in the receiver so we can get a better look. Okay, so I got the receiver turned upside down. I'm going to pop these screws. I don't want to have to take any of this wire off. I may have to cut some tie wraps, but I don't have the patience, I guess, to mark each one of these and unsolder the pins from the back. I have a wire wrap gun, but the problem with redoing wire wrap is you need a good 2 inches of clean, fresh wire to wrap. And there's usually not that much slack. Hence, most people simply unsolder the pins and mark them. Let's see if we have to do that. All right. Okay, so let's see what we got. We don't have a lot of slack, so I'm gonna have to cut some tie wraps here. Let's see. I was received a private message on an audio forum I belong to by somebody who discovered these YouTube videos, and I forgot to tell him this, but he was talking about making videos, and I remember when I first started, I learned something about myself I didn't even realize, and that is, when I first started making videos, I played them back, I realized that as I'm working, there's a constant stream of muttered profanity coming out of my mouth. I didn't even realize it. But I would run into something like this. So, yeah, I've had to curtail that. You folks don't need to hear it. I don't need to say it. Anyhow, I'm going to have to see if I can get this turned over. I'm really curious to see the solder joints here. I think I'm going to just unsolder this whole thing from the board. So I'm going to pause that while I wrestle around a little bit so you don't have to hear the profanity. Okay, so I've got the selector switch out, and I'm going to clean it really well and find out why this shaft pulls out. I don't see any place for a clip at the end. There's something wrong here because this should not come out. And something needs to hold it in, because if you turn it enough times and it comes loose, this switch will no longer function. So we're going to look at this, straighten it out, and I may recap this board while it's up because it's a real pain to get up. I may not. I may just put this back in until I tie the wires back down. I should be able to get everything on the back here to recap. But here's our selector switch. It was a bit tedious to unsolder, but once I got that done, no worries, it popped right out. I wound up modifying the selector, the function selector switch, by taking a piece of spring steel and drilling 2 holes in the back plate and just mounting those on there to put pressure on the back of the shaft. This way it won't come out. This is totally reversible. If there's a better way to do it, please let me know, but this worked fine. Here's a picture. I just cut a piece of spring steel from out of a hose clamp. I drilled 2 holes in the back, and then I put nuts on here. I made sure they didn't touch anything on this back wafer, and it seems to be working fine. I tested the phono because it was a little jittery and noisy, I believe due to the switch being dirty. But now, if we turn our generator on and turn the volume up, and of course, turn the receiver on, you can see we get good output. And there's no jitter, there's no noise, everything looks good. So I'd say we can move on from here and take a look at the FM section and see what the problem with that is. Okay, so I'm feeding a signal into the FM. Looks really stable, which it didn't before, so cleaning that function switch may have helped here. The signal is pretty strong, so I expect it to look good. I think there's still a problem in the FM, but I'm not going to tear into anything until such a time as I get all these switches cleaned, because I believe we might have a problem with our mono stereo switch here. See, I have nothing coming out. Only in mono do I have something on both channels, and I'm feeding a mono signal in currently. Now I've cleaned the tuner, and I may clean it again. I've got some pictures up here. You want to very carefully place deoxit or some other cleaning agent onto the contact points only. Don't get anything on the fins. It'll upset your tuning. It'll have to be cleaned off. There may be a problem in the multiplex section here. I'm not sure. I'm going to tap on the board a bit. Again, it could simply be dirty switches. I don't think so, but anyway, we're going to have to take a better look at the FM. The selector switch seems to be straightened out. The power cord is straightened out. Now the next segment is going to be about finding out what's going on with our FM. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video, enjoyed making it, and as always, I like giving back to the community that has given me so much. Thanks a lot, folks.